Welcome to my channel Garden. Hi there. Today we're diving into part 3 of story. The villain was never sick. Let's continue. By the time they returned to the estate, the rain had grown heavier, the mansion lights glowing warmly through the storm. Servants approached immediately, hurrying forward with umbrellas and offers to help with the bags. Liang Zhen carried the sleeping Shen Yu inside himself despite the staff's protests. The child instinctively curled closer against him, tiny hands clutching his clothes, trusting him completely. One older maid watched the scene with suspiciously wet eyes. Inside, the mansion felt quieter than before. Liang Zhen suddenly realized something. He's really not home yet. Guilan removed her gloves slowly. No. The warmth from earlier faded slightly. Liang Zhen understood something then. When Shin Wanjo disappeared into business mode, even his family worried. A servant approached nervously. "Madam, what is it?" The second warehouse manager was taken away already. Liang Zhen froze. Taken away where? Guilan merely sighed tiredly. That quickly? Yes, madam. How messy. Liang Zhen. Why was everyone talking like this? Then the servant hesitated before adding carefully. Young master also ordered an internal audit of all affiliated accounts. Shen Wenzhou raised an eyebrow. Guilan muttered. So he's angry. That was different from normal angry? Liang Zhen suddenly remembered the black gloves. Oh no. Oh no. Then his phone vibrated. Unknown number. The moment he answered, a sharp female voice exploded through the line. Liang Zhen. His stepmother. Liang Zhen instinctively pulled the phone slightly away from his ear. Still loud. Impressively loud. Do you have any idea what you've done? Su Lanxin roared. Nearby servants immediately pretended not to hear. Professional survival instincts. Liang Zhen glanced toward Shen Yu sleeping against his shoulder and lowered his voice. I didn't do anything. You disappeared without answering your phone. Su Lanxin's voice trembled slightly. You weren't answering messages. You weren't answering calls. And then I hear you've gotten involved in another dangerous situation. Another? Liang Zhen frowned. The word felt strange. Before he could think about it, she continued. Do you know what it was like the last time we got a call from a hose? The sentence stopped abruptly. Liang Zhen blinked. Hospital. For some reason, the word felt familiar. Then again, of course it did. Hadn't he woken up in a hospital first? How did he forget something so important? The memory was hazy. Fragments more than anything else. White walls. The sharp smell of disinfectant. A nurse checking something beside his bed. Then the driver explaining there had been an accident. Someone had been injured, so they needed to stop at the hospital first. After that, they had gone to the Shin residence. Now that he remembered it, that was a little strange. Why had everyone suddenly gone quiet? On the other end of the line, silence stretched strangely long. Then Liang Guowei cut in. You spent a night there. A beat. Of course we were worried. Oh, that made sense. Probably. The strange feeling faded almost immediately. Still, for some reason, the silence before the explanation lingered in his mind. On the other end of the call, Liang Guowei cleared his throat. Then the anger returned abruptly. Anyway, that's not the point. Liang Zhen blinked. The point is that you disappeared, ignored everyone's calls, and somehow managed to get involved in another mess. I didn't get involved in anything. You were standing next to Shin Wanjo. That doesn't count. It absolutely counts. From somewhere in the background, Liang Zhen thought he heard his stepmother mutter. It absolutely counts. Apparently, they were united on this issue. How was I supposed to know he'd decide to destroy half the project overnight? Liang Zhen argued. You never know anything. What does that even mean? It means. Liang Guowei stopped. A strange pause followed. Then his voice came back lower with some roughness. Just stop scaring people. The words slipped out before he seemed able to stop them. For a brief moment, all the anger vanished, leaving behind something far more exhausted. Then the silence became awkward. Liang Zhen frowned. Why did everyone keep saying things like that? Before he could ask. That's enough. The new voice cut cleanly through the call. Calm, cold and terrifyingly familiar. Liang Zhen looked up instantly. The mansion entrance doors had opened sometime during the call. Rain and night wind swept briefly inside. And there, still wearing black gloves, stood Shin Wanjo. Several men in dark suits remained behind him. One of them looked pale enough to require medical assistance. Another avoided eye contacts completely. Liang Zhen's survival instincts activated immediately. Oh no! Business mode villain returned. Shin Wanjo walked closer slowly, water still glimmering faintly on his dark coat. He held out a hand silently. Liang Zhen stared for 1 second before automatically giving him the phone. Traitorous instincts. Shin Wanjo lifted it calmly to his ear. President Liang. Instant silence from the other side. Then a strained voice. President Shin. Shin Wanjo removed one black glove finger by finger. You seem confused, he said softly. About what? About something very simple. The last glove slipped free. He doesn't belong to your family anymore. Liang Zhen's heartbeat skipped. The room became deathly quiet. Even Gu Yilan looked up sharply from across the hall. Shin Wanjo's expression remained perfectly calm. But, he continued, for future clarification, his gaze shifted briefly toward Liang Zhen. Steady and focused. Even if he did, pause, you still wouldn't have the right to mistreat him. Absolute silence. Liang Zhen froze completely. Something tight lodged painfully in his chest. Shin Wanjo sounded genuinely angry at the way Liang Zhen had been treated. Liang Guowei apparently sensed danger too because his tone changed instantly. I never mistreated him. For the briefest moment, something unreadable crossed Shin Wanjo's face. Gone almost immediately, a soft laugh escaped Shin Wanjo, clearly not amused. So, 32 missed calls in 1 day are concern, he said mildly. But years of neglect is parenting? On the other end of the line, Liang Guowei didn't answer immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded rough. You don't know everything. No. Shin Wanjo's gaze flickered briefly toward Liang Zhen. Steady. Complicated. Perhaps not. Then his expression hardened again. The moment vanished. Do not contact my spouse again unless invited. Click. Call ended. The mansion remained silent afterward. No one moved. No one spoke. Then Shin Wanjo lowered the phone and looked toward Liang Zhen. And Liang Zhen noticed faint blood staining the cuff beneath his sleeve. Tiny. Almost hidden. But there. His breath caught instantly. You're hurt. The room shifted subtly. One bodyguard looked nervous. Gu Yilan stood immediately. Shin Wanjo glanced down briefly like he'd forgotten entirely. It's nothing. Liar. Liang Zhen moved before thinking. He stepped forward quickly and grabbed Shin Wanjo's wrist carefully. Warm skin, tense muscles, and definitely injured. You're bleeding. Shin Wanjo looked down at him quietly. Close now. Very close. It isn't serious. You said that about the illness too. Silence. One bodyguard suddenly looked deeply interested in the ceiling. Gu Yilan looked seconds away from laughing. And Shin Wanjo actually paused. Then slowly, very slowly, a faint smile appeared in his eyes. Ah, he said softly. So, you know now. Liang Zhen tightened his grip instinctively. Yes, I know now. The words came out sharper than expected. Good. Because he was angry. Actually angry. This man let him spend 2 entire days emotionally mourning him internally while pretending to be terminally ill. Shin Wanjo looked at him quietly. Not defensive or apologetic. Just watching. Like Liang Zhen being upset was somehow interesting. That only made Liang Zhen more offended. You lied. A strategic omission. That is literally lying. A matter of perspective. Liang Zhen stared at him in disbelief. Meanwhile, several servants had subtly turned away to hide expressions. One maid looked emotionally invested. Gu Yilan finally failed to contain herself and burst into delighted laughter. Oh, finally! Shin Rongda sighed deeply. He's being scolded. As he should be. Agreed. Liang Zhen pointed accusingly at Shin Wanjo. You coughed dramatically. It was convincing. You looked at me sadly. That wasn't intentional. You let me think you were dying. This time, Shin Wanjo actually looked mildly guilty. Only mildly. I assumed my parents explained. They did. Today. Ah, that was his response. Liang Zhen nearly exploded. Then Shin Wanjo calmly asked, "Are you relieved?" The anger caught briefly in Liang Zhen's throat. Because beneath the teasing calm, the question sounded genuine. Careful, even, like he truly wanted to know. And the answer came too quickly. Obviously. Silence. The atmosphere shifted subtly again. Shin Wanzhou's gaze softened almost imperceptibly. Across the room, Guilan looked ready to write wedding invitations again. Then Liang Zhen remembered the blood instantly. Wait. Sit down first. Without waiting for agreement, he dragged Shin Wanjo toward the sofa by the wrist. The bodyguards collectively froze. Apparently, nobody dragged President Shin anywhere normally. But Shin Wanjo followed without resistance, which honestly terrified them more. Liang Zhen pushed him onto the sofa firmly. Don't move. Why was he suddenly obedient? That somehow felt suspicious. A servant rushed over immediately with a medical kit. Liang Zhen sat beside Shin Wanjo and carefully pulled back the dark sleeve. Then froze. A cut stretched along Shin Wanjo's forearm. Not huge, but deep enough to bleed through the cuff. Liang Zhen's expression darkened instantly. What happened? A glass. That is not a normal glass injury. It broke emotionally. Liang Zhen. This man was unbelievable. You need stitches. No. Yes. No. Liang Zhen narrowed his eyes. Shin Wanjo looked entirely unconcerned. Like his own blood was mildly inconvenient at best. Then Shen Yu stirred sleepily against Liang Zhen's shoulder. Tiny eyes opening halfway. Papa. The moment he noticed the blood, the child woke fully. His face paled instantly. And without hesitation, he climbed off Liang Zhen and hurried toward Shin Wanjo. Again. The single word hit the room heavily. Again. Liang Zhen's chest tightened. Shin Wanjo's expression changed immediately. Softer. Gentler. I'm fine. Shin Yu stared silently at the injury, then quietly grabbed the edge of Shin Wanjo's sleeve. Did someone bad make Papa angry? No answer. That was the answer. Liang Zhen looked between them slowly. This wasn't new. Shin Yu had seen this before. Enough times to recognize the signs. Something cold settled uneasily in Liang Zhen's stomach. How dangerous exactly was Shin Wanjo's world? Then suddenly Shen Yu turned toward Liang Zhen. Can you fix him? The trust in that tiny voice nearly killed Liang Zhen on the spot. I'll try. Shen Yu nodded immediately. Like if Liang Zhen said it, then it would happen. Meanwhile Shin Wanjo watched them both silently. No expression. Yet somehow the room felt strangely warm despite the rain outside. Liang Zhen opened the medical kit carefully. You're getting stitches. No. Yes. No. Liang Zhen grabbed antiseptic. Shin Wanjo finally looked mildly alarmed. That burns. Good. Guilan laughed so hard she nearly lost composure entirely. Shin Rongda muttered into his tea. Remarkable. Nobody had apparently spoken to Shin Wanjo like this in years. Then Liang Zhen gently cleaned the cut anyway. Despite the scolding, his movements remained careful, instinctively gentle, and Shin Wanjo, who normally hated being touched while injured, sat still the entire time, watching him quietly, until suddenly he asked, Why are your hands shaking? Liang Zhen froze slightly, because he hadn't noticed. But they were tiny tremors. Fear, adrenaline, and relief, all tangled together. Because you came home bleeding, Liang Zhen admitted softly. The room fell silent again. This time, even Shin Wanjo stopped smiling. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Rain tapped softly against the windows. The mansion lights glowed warm and gold across the room. Liang Zhen suddenly realized his hand was still wrapped around Shin Wanjo's wrist, steadying it, protecting it. The awareness made his heartbeat stumble strangely. But Shin Wanjo didn't pull away, didn't look uncomfortable. If anything, His gaze had become too focused again, too quiet and dangerously attentive. Liang Zhen quickly looked down and continued disinfecting the cut. You should be more careful. Shin Wanjo's voice came low beside him. I usually am. Then why were you hurt? A man panicked. That's not an explanation. He had a knife. Liang Zhen nearly dropped the cotton pad. What? Across the room, Gu Ilan sighed dramatically. There it is. That is a very important detail. It wasn't important, Shin Wanjo replied calmly. He missed. The man was still bleeding. How was that missing? Liang Zhen looked horrified. You got attacked. A failed attempt. That's still an attack. Shin Rongda took another sip of tea. He's excited. I am not excited. You're louder than usual. Liang Zhen ignored him completely and turned back toward Shin Wanjo. Was it because of the accounts? Yes. And someone pulled a knife over accounting fraud? They were desperate. That was worse. Liang Zhen suddenly remembered this was technically a villain story, right? Corporate crime, power struggles, possible murder. Wonderful. Then another terrifying thought hit him. Wait! Shin Wanjo looked at him. The original story said you died killing the mastermind behind Yanlin's death. The room went silent instantly. Completely silent. Gu Ilan's smile faded. Shin Rongda slowly lowered his teacup, and Shin Wanjo stilled. For the briefest moment, something flashed across his face. Not suspicion. Something far more dangerous. Hope, then shock, then disbelief. As if he couldn't quite believe what he'd just heard. Then it vanished. Liang Zhen realized too late what he'd said out loud. Oh no. Novel knowledge. Novel knowledge. Abort. Original story? Shin Wanjo asked quietly. Liang Zhen's soul ascended immediately. Think fast. I mean rumors. Terrible save. Absolutely terrible. Nobody looked convinced. Least of all Shin Wanjo. He kept watching him. Silent. Attentive. As though he was waiting for something. Liang Zhen immediately looked back down and attacked the bandages instead. Liang Zhen forced himself to keep working on the bandages. Do not panic. Do not confess transmigration. Do not accidentally reveal future plot points. Simple. Totally simple. Then Shin Wanjo quietly asked, how do you know Yanlin's case involved a mastermind? Direct hit. Liang Zhen froze. Because the public story only reported an accident. Very few people knew Shin Wanjo suspected murder. Oops. Huge oops. The room became strangely quiet. Everyone was looking at him. Liang Zhen. The voice was soft. Careful. Who told you that? Liang Zhen opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Across the room, Gu Ilan's fingers tightened slightly around her teacup. Shin Rongda had gone completely still. Neither of them interrupted. Neither of them looked away. As though they were waiting for his answer too. Liang Zhen's brain began sprinting in circles. Excuse. Need excuse. Fast. Then suddenly Shen Yu climbed directly into Liang Zhen's lap. Like a tiny missile. Sleepy. The tension shattered instantly. Liang Zhen nearly cried from gratitude. You're sleepy? He asked quickly. Shen Yu nodded slowly and buried his face against Liang Zhen's chest. Tiny arms wrapped around him. The atmosphere in the room softened immediately. Gu Ilan let out a slow breath. Yet for a brief moment, Liang Zhen thought he caught something strange in her expression. A flicker of disappointment. Or perhaps regret. It vanished so quickly he couldn't be certain he'd seen it at all. That child has timing, she said softly. Shin Rongda remained thoughtful. His gaze lingered on Liang Zhen longer than usual. Meanwhile, Shin Wanjo hadn't looked away. Not yet. His eyes stayed on Liang Zhen, searching, as though weighing every possibility, as though he wanted to ask again. Then finally he leaned back. The pressure eased. Forget it, Shin Wanjo said quietly. For some reason he sounded reluctant. Liang Zhen nearly sagged with relief. Survived. He had survived. Then Shin Wanjo calmly added, You're a terrible liar. Liang Zhen immediately withdrew his previous statement. He was not surviving. Before he could recover, Shen Yu sleepily mumbled against his chest. Papa. Don't scare brother. Silence. Then, unbelievably, Shin Wanjo looked at the child and answered softly, I'm not. For a second, something unreadable crossed his face. Then it vanished. That was somehow even scarier. Because Liang Zhen knew Shin Wanjo genuinely wasn't trying to intimidate him. This was just how he naturally was. Oh no, the dangerous aura came pre-installed. Later that night, Liang Zhen couldn't sleep, which was understandable, because in the span of one day he had learned. His husband was not terminally ill. Said husband apparently handled corporate betrayal with terrifying efficiency. Knives were somehow involved, and he had nearly exposed transmigration secrets in front of a man smart enough to notice inconsistencies immediately. Absolutely wonderful. Beside him, Shin Wanjo sat against the headboard reading documents under dim bedside light. Still awake. Working. Bandaged forearm resting carelessly atop dark sheets. Liang Zhen stared at him suspiciously from under the blanket. You should sleep. Without looking up, Shin Wanjo replied, You've said that 6 times. And I'll say it 7. A quiet hum of amusement. Then silence settled again. Soft rain outside. Occasional rustle of paper. The atmosphere felt strangely peaceful. Liang Zhen pulled the blanket slightly higher and continued staring. Honestly, now that he knew the truth, it was impossible not to notice things. Shin Wanjo looked healthy. Not perfectly healthy. There was still lingering pallor sometimes. Exhaustion beneath the eyes if one looked carefully enough. But not dying. Not fragile. Not doomed. The relief still sat heavily inside Liang Zhen's chest. Because why had he been so scared earlier seeing blood? Why had his hands shaken? Why did the idea of Shen Wenzhou actually dying suddenly feel unbearable? Dangerous thoughts. Very dangerous thoughts. Then Shen Wanjo spoke suddenly. You're staring again. Liang Zhen immediately rolled over. I'm sleeping. You just answered. Sleep talking. That finally earned another soft laugh. Liang Zhen's ears heated beneath the blanket. Illegal. This man's laugh was genuinely illegal. Then the mattress shifted slightly. Liang Zhen blinked and peeked out, only to freeze. Shin Wanjo had moved closer. Close enough that the dim light outlined sharp features and silver-framed glasses beautifully. Way too close. What are you doing? Observing. That sounds sinister. Usually, yes. Usually? Liang Zhen stared at him in horror. Shin Wanjo merely looked back, calm and thoughtful. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then quietly asked, What are you hiding? The question struck directly into Liang Zhen's spine. Cold panic spread instantly. Did he know? No, impossible. But lately Shin Wanjo had been watching him too carefully. Liang Zhen forced himself to stay calm. Nothing. A long silence followed. Shin Wanjo didn't sound convinced. His gaze remained fixed on Liang Zhen, steady and patient, as though waiting for him to continue. When nothing came, Shin Wanjo finally looked away. For a moment he seemed disappointed. Shin Wanjo studied him quietly. When I came home injured tonight, he said softly. You were angry before you were frightened. Liang Zhen's breath caught slightly. So? His voice remained calm, detached, like discussing someone else entirely. You were worried. The room became very quiet. Liang Zhen suddenly understood something painful beneath those words. People around Shin Wanjo were used to fearing him, obeying him, using him, depending on him, but not caring for him. Not simply because he was injured. Something in Liang Zhen's chest softened painfully. Well, he muttered quietly, someone should. Shin Wanjo went still, completely still. The air itself seemed to pause. Liang Zhen realized what he'd said too late. Oh no, that sounded way too sincere. He quickly tried to recover. I mean, because you're still recovering, and if you die then Shen Yu will be sad, and your mother will probably commit homicide and... A hand suddenly touched his face lightly. Liang Zhen froze instantly. Shen Wanjo's fingers rested briefly against his cheek. Warm and careful. Gentle enough to make Liang Zhen's heartbeat spiral completely out of control. Then Shin Wanjo said quietly, "You're too kind." The words sounded almost unfamiliar coming from him. Like kindness was something rare enough to surprise him. Liang Zhen's throat tightened unexpectedly, because suddenly this didn't feel like a villain story anymore. It felt like meeting someone profoundly lonely. The next week passed strangely peacefully, which honestly terrified Liang Zhen more than the knife incident. Because how was this becoming normal? Every morning he woke up beside Shin Wanjo. Every morning he experienced the exact same crisis. Too close, too warm, and too handsome. And somehow, despite starting each night carefully separated by an entire mattress worth of distance, he always woke up tangled against Shin Wanjo again. The first 3 times were humiliating. By the 6th time, Shin Wanjo merely opened his eyes lazily and asked, "Comfortable?" Liang Zhen almost smothered himself with a pillow. Meanwhile, Shin Wanjo had become deeply suspicious about enjoying this far too much. Daily life at the Shin estate settled into rhythm surprisingly quickly. Morning, breakfast with Shen Yu. Afternoon, avoiding Gu Ilan's spontaneous, bonding activities. Evening, trying unsuccessfully to stop Shin Wanjo from overworking. Night, emotional instability. Simple, totally simple. "Brother." Liang Zhen looked up from the kitchen counter. Shen Yu stood nearby holding a tiny watering can. "What are you watering?" "The strawberries." Liang Zhen blinked. "There are strawberries?" Apparently there were. Hidden in the greenhouse behind the eastern garden because rich people apparently owned secret fruit houses. Liang Zhen followed Shen Yu outside and nearly stopped in shock. The greenhouse was beautiful. Warm sunlight filtering through glass. Rows of flowers and small fruit vines surrounding them. Even herbs carefully labeled in elegant handwriting. "This is amazing." Shen Yu nodded proudly. "Papa made it." That surprised him. "Shin Wanjo Gardens?" "He gets angry at flowers." "What?" "He says trimming plants is stress relief." That sounded deeply concerning. Still, Liang Zhen found himself smiling. Because imagining Shin Wanjo in rolled-up sleeves silently threatening roses somehow felt absurdly human. Shen Yu carefully watered the strawberries while Liang Zhen helped beside him. It was quiet and comfortable. At some point, the child suddenly asked, "Will you stay forever?" Liang Zhen froze slightly. There it was again. That fear. Abandonment lingering quietly beneath every attachment. Liang Zhen softened instantly. "I'm not leaving." Shen Yu looked down at the strawberries. "Promise." The tiny voice nearly broke him. Liang Zhen crouched beside him carefully. "I promise." A small hand slowly grabbed his sleeve again. Trusting and warm. And this time Shen Yu smiled a little. Tiny and sleepy looking, but real. Liang Zhen immediately suffered emotional damage. "Oh no." The child smiled. This was not a drill. Then suddenly, a familiar voice came from behind. Liang Zhen turned, and nearly stopped breathing for a second. Shin Wanjo stood near the greenhouse entrance. Black dress shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, tie loosened slightly, sunlight catching against silver-framed glasses. Unfairly attractive, completely unfair. He looked between them quietly. "You made him smile?" Shen Yu instantly hid behind Liang Zhen again. The smile vanished immediately. "Shy now." Liang Zhen almost melted. "He's adorable," he whispered instinctively. Shin Wanjo paused slightly, then looked at Shen Yu. "Hear that?" Shen Yu buried his face deeper into Liang Zhen's shoulder, which only made Liang Zhen laugh softly. For a moment, everything felt warm. Then Shin Wanjo walked closer slowly, close enough that Liang Zhen could smell faint coffee. "You skipped lunch." Liang Zhen blinked. "How do you know that?" "You forgot your tray untouched upstairs." "Oh, right. Oops." Liang Zhen had gotten distracted reading with Shen Yu again. Shin Wanjo looked unimpressed. "You're scolding me?" "Yes. That's unfair. You lectured me about health for 23 minutes yesterday. That was different." "How?" "You came home bleeding. And you skipped meals. That's not equally serious." Shin Wanjo's eyes narrowed slightly. "To me it is." Silence. Liang Zhen's heartbeat betrayed him instantly. Oh no, oh no. Why did he say things like that so casually? Meanwhile, Shen Yu quietly peeked between them, then asked with complete seriousness, "Are you flirting?" Dead silence. Liang Zhen combusted immediately. No. Shin Wanjo looked calm. Possibly. Traitor. Shen Yu nodded thoughtfully like a scientist confirming data. I knew it. Liang Zhen wanted the earth to swallow him whole. After the greenhouse incident, Liang Zhen could no longer look at Shin Wanjo normally. Not that he could before, but now it was worse. Because every time their eyes met, Liang Zhen remembered. To me it is. And then, possibly, absolute menace. Meanwhile, Shen Yu had apparently accepted their flirting as objective fact and started observing them like a tiny relationship analyst. At breakfast, Shin Wanjo, eat properly. Shen Yu, quietly drinking milk. Papa sounds happy today. Liang Zhen nearly inhaled tea wrong. In the afternoon, Liang Zhen helping adjust Shin Wanjo's bandage. Shen Yu nearby with crayons. Brother touches Papa a lot. Shen Yu. Dinner. Shin Wanjo placing peeled shrimp into Liang Zhen's bowl naturally. Shen Yu. Married behavior. Liang Zhen. This child was 6. Why was he like this? Meanwhile, Shin Wanjo remained completely calm through all of it. Suspiciously calm. Actually, worse than calm. Encouraging. Like he enjoyed watching Liang Zhen malfunction repeatedly. Villain behavior. Pure villain behavior. A few days later, Liang Zhen discovered another terrifying fact. The Shin family spoiled him. Aggressively. At first, it was subtle. His favorite tea appearing every morning. Books he casually mentioned arriving the next day. Desserts he liked coincidentally prepared more often. Then it escalated. Why are there 6 coats in my closet? Guilan looked offended. Winter exists. It's September. And why is this chair replaced? Shin Rongda calmly turned a newspaper page. You said your back hurt once. I was sitting wrong. Not anymore. Then the final blow. Liang Zhen walked into the study one evening and froze. Why is there a cat? A fluffy black cat blinked lazily from atop the sofa. Silence. Then Shin Wanjo looked up from his documents. You stared at one for 10 minutes outside the bookstore yesterday. Liang Zhen's brain stopped functioning. You bought me a cat because I looked at one? You looked sad leaving it. That was not normal rich people logic. The cat stretched and immediately walked toward Liang Zhen like it had known him forever. Traitor. Liang Zhen carefully picked it up. Soft and warm tiny little paws. Oh no. His weakness. What's its name? Shin Wanjo answered immediately. You decide. That somehow hit harder. Because nobody had ever casually handed him choices before. Not real ones. Liang Zhen looked down at the cat quietly. The little thing blinked sleepily at him. Ink, he decided softly. Shin Wanjo returned to his paperwork calmly. Like buying living creatures as emotional support gifts was completely ordinary behavior. Meanwhile, Liang Zhen sat there holding the cat in stunned silence. Then suddenly realized something. Wait. Shin Wanjo glanced up. You noticed I looked sad? A pause. Yes. How? You become quieter. The answer came immediately, as though it wasn't something he needed to think about. Liang Zhen's heartbeat immediately became unstable again. Then the cat stepped directly onto Shin Wanjo's documents. Silence. Liang Zhen froze. Oh no. He instinctively reached to grab the cat away, but Shen Wanjo simply lifted the cat calmly and placed it into Liang Zhen's lap instead. No irritation. No annoyance. Nothing. Liang Zhen stared suspiciously. You're not mad. It's paper. It's important. You're more important. Silence. Total silence. Even the cat seemed stunned. Liang Zhen looked at him blankly. Shin Wanjo had already returned to reading. Calm and elegant as always. Like he hadn't just casually detonated Liang Zhen's emotional stability again. Meanwhile, Liang Zhen sat there holding ink while internally screaming. Because what was he supposed to do with this man? Then suddenly, knock. Knock. A servant entered carefully. Young master. What is it? There's news from the investigation. The room atmosphere shifted instantly. Warmth fading. Business mode approaching. The servant hesitated. They found another connection to Miss Su Yanlin's accident. Silence. Shin Wanjo slowly lowered the document in his hands. And after many days, that coldness returned fully to his eyes. The study became silent. Ink immediately sensed the atmosphere shift and curled deeper into Liang Zhen's arms. Even the servant looked nervous, continuing. Shin Wanzhou's expression remained too calm. What connection? The financial transfers, the servant said carefully. The same shell company appeared again. A pause. Connected to the old warehouse accounts. Liang Zhen's stomach dropped slightly. So, the recent attack and Su Yanlin's death were connected. Meaning the original plot was already moving. Yet for some reason, the unease in his chest felt deeper than that. Shin Wanjo stood slowly. The soft atmosphere from moments ago vanished completely. Now he looked like the villain described in the novel again. Cold, precise and dangerous. Who found it? Assistant Su. Where is he? In the West office. Shin Wanjo reached for his coat. And instantly Liang Zhen felt uneasy. Because now that he knew the story, he couldn't stop seeing future death flags everywhere. The investigation, the mastermind, the revenge. This was how it started. Then Shin Wanjo noticed him watching. Their eyes met briefly. Something in Shin Wanjo's gaze softened slightly again. Don't wait up tonight. His voice softened slightly, as though the request mattered more than it should have. Absolutely not. Those words sounded illegal now, like the beginning of tragic separation scenes. Liang Zhen stood immediately. I'm coming too. The entire room froze. The servant looked horrified. Shin Wanjo paused mid-motion. No. Why not? It isn't safe. And you think that makes me feel better? Silence. Oops. That came out too emotionally. Shin Wanjo studied him carefully, then quietly asked, You're worried about me again? Obviously. Why? Because you die. Because the story says you die. Because somewhere between fake illness, shared breakfasts, and buying him emotionally manipulative cats. Liang Zhen had started caring far too much, but he couldn't say any of that. So instead, because Shen Yu would cry, the room went silent. Then Shin Wanjo's eyebrow lifted slightly. Only Shen Yu? Liang Zhen. This man was impossible. Your mother too. And the cat. The cat. Yes. Ink meowed immediately like supporting evidence. A faint smile appeared briefly at the corner of Shen Wanjo's mouth, then disappeared again. No. Liang Zhen crossed his arms stubbornly. I'm still coming. You're stubborn. You married me. That slipped out accidentally. Silence. The servant looked ready to pass away, and Shin Wanjo actually froze for half a second. Then very slowly, something softened in Shin Wanjo's eyes. For a moment he looked at Liang Zhen quietly. Then he smiled. I did, he said softly. Liang Zhen's ears exploded red immediately. Oh no. Oh no, why did he say it like that? Before he could recover, another voice entered. I'm coming too. End of part 3. Thank you for watching. What do you think Shin Wanjo is hiding?